When we talk about CSR contribution, there is no expectation but just social returns on investment. When ZS started contributing to social activities, we always knew that we want to contribute into education and we want to bring in equity. When you talk about qualitative educational interventions, वहाँ पे you need a very strong monitoring and evaluation. जिन्हें पता है कि वो क्या करें, they are working for a cause, but they don't know how to present that. Currently, if I want to answer whether we want to expand the scholarship, I'll give you an example from a very favorite childhood memory of mine, grabbing opportunities on the right time and leading with example. When we reach the 100th year of our independence, I'm sure that India should not be mentioned as a developing country.
Hello everyone, I am Salma Rahman and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to the inaugural episode of B4S Spotlight, a special podcast series by Buddy for Study dedicated to fostering meaningful conversations on education, equity and inclusion. Throughout this series, we will bring together industry leaders and change makers who are committed to transforming education for a better tomorrow. At Buddy for Study, we have been working tirelessly to bridge the gap between students and opportunities by providing access to scholarships, mentorship, and other educational funding avenues. Education is not just about learning, it's about empowerment, and today's discussion will focus on how corporate social responsibility can drive equity and inclusion in education. Our topic for today's episode, therefore, is Empowering Education through CSR, Driving Equity and Inclusion. And we are honored to have with us a distinguished leader who has been at the forefront of impactful CSR driven educational initiatives, Dr. Akshita Vyas, CSR Lead at ZS Associates, for an insightful conversation. With over 13 years of experience in the CSR and development sector, Dr. Vyas has played a pivotal role in creating transformative social impact programs. From leading community development projects at Persistent Systems to spearheading CSR strategies at ZS Associates, she has been a driving force in shaping educational interventions that empower students across India. Today's conversation will be led by Mr. Dhruv Goyal, Vice President, Strategic Partnerships at Buddy for Study. So, without any further delay, let's begin. Over to you, Dhruv.
Thank you so much. It's truly a privilege to have this conversation with Dr. Akshita Vyas today. Akshita, welcome to the show. And
Thank you,
before
Dhruv.
we dive into the specifics of your work at ZS, I would love to hear about your passion for education and CSR. What inspired you to take up this role and drive initiatives that create such a meaningful impact?
Thank you, Salma, for the warm introduction. And it's always a pleasure to be part of B4S initiatives. And here we are with yet another wonderful initiative by the team. So Dhruv, just to start a conversation, I think this question has brought me back to the older days of when I started volunteering after my MBA days. So I used to teach at a shelter home during my spare time when I was also appearing for many placement opportunities. And while I was doing so, I already knew about what CSR is. And I also knew that this is going to be my sector. I really want to do something in it. So the inspiration was always through volunteering, because when I was a child, I used to go with my father to various non-profit organizations, to various social initiatives. He was always a part of such events. So I just knew that this has to be the background of whatever I do. And fortunately, I met this passion and profession into CSR. So yeah, that's how the journey started.
That's wonderful sharing that thing, Akshita. I guess कुछ ही लोग होते हैं जिन्होंने एनजीओ में वॉलंटियरिंग भी किया होता है
Great.
एंड अदर साइड ऑफ द टेबल पे रह सकते हैं तो यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड द पेन ऑफ एनजीओ इन अ बेटर वे एट दैट टाइम. Education is evolving rapidly, and CSR driven programs must constantly adapt to meeting emerging needs. At ZS, how are you ensuring that such initiatives are aligned with key education trends? Because उनको साथ में अलाइन करना एंड एट द सेम टाइम कंप्लाइंट रहना सीएसआर के साथ भी इट इज वेरी टफ. तो हाउ एट जीएस यू आर डूइंग दैट थिंग?
So, Dhruv, when we talk about ZS's focus areas, education is undoubtedly one of the strongest pillars that we have. And since the very beginning of when ZS started contributing to social activities, we always knew that we want to contribute into education and we want to bring in equity. And how we do so is by identifying the right need in the community. So, of course, it's always due to the nonprofit partners that we have on the ground who have the right expertise. When we talk about CSR contribution, this is not a philanthropic donation. This is more like an investment wherein there is no expectation, but just social returns on investment. And we definitely want whatever we are contributing, it should have multiple effects and it should have an impact. So we are not only focusing on the beneficiary count, but we are also looking at the final impact. What is the learning outcome? How are we identifying the training of the teachers' needs? What is the right assessment which is required? So all this mixed approach really helps us to create a program with our nonprofit partners and introduce that program to the community. And this has helped us on a very large scale. So this is the kind of transformation that we have seen because of such kind of intervention. And it is the power of corporates through their CSR and the expertise of the nonprofits that we can see this kind of a transformation in generations over these years.
And did you get a chance to meet any of your, those beneficiaries to whom you have supported? And how's that feeling? कैसा लगा था आपको उस time पे?
Almost all of them. So we have daily interactions, not daily, but we generally meet our beneficiaries. And it's always a wonderful experience meeting with them because through volunteering initiatives, or we also invite many of the students to our ZS office. And even they get a chance to see who we are. So we are the didis and bhaiyas for them. We teach them, we mentor them. And it's so beautiful to look at their confidence. This is not just an intervention. This is not just a project. There is also emotions involved in it. So I think, this entire blend, I am truly fond of what we do.
That's wonderful. And you have mentioned one thing that's very important to understand. Like we all know that funding education is not just about numbers, it's about the real impact. And so at ZS, or generally, if I say about CSR space, what key metrics or evaluation frameworks should CSR initiative use to measure their success and ensure long-term sustainability? Because sustainable होना भी बहुत जरूरी है एक प्रोग्राम को. Short term प्रोग्राम तो short term ही रह जाते हैं.
Right. So, Dhruv, I think it all depends on the type of project that we are planning. So, अगर हम लोग एक बहुत long term project की बात कर रहे हैं जहाँ पे हमारा intervention हमें लग रहा है कि हमें from 3 to 5 years हम लोगों को उसको देखना है कि how is it that working so. Infrastructural projects में it is quite visible that आप जो कर रहे हैं वहाँ पे suppose एक building में आपने कुछ support कर दिया, आपने toilet construction में support किया है, हमने कोई उसमें एक lab में investments किए हैं. But when you talk about qualitative educational interventions, wahan pe you need a very strong monitoring and evaluation, right from the need assessment to midline assessment to endline assessment. There has to be a set timeline of the interventions that you do, और उसको आपको time to time assess करना is very important. And there has to be certain metrics involved. कि learning outcomes क्या होने चाहिए. So all of those milestones of the program, they need to be identified and they need to be assessed time to time in discussion with the non-profit partners. So this becomes really important because the ultimate outcome of the project and whatever contribution the corporate has done and whatever the resource the NGO has invested, उन सबका return you will get to see when you have a very strong monitoring and evaluation.
So right now, if I talk about current space altogether where everybody is looking for impact, so जब भी आप कोई program start करते हैं, तो do you actually look for those impact in your mind beforehand, या फिर during the program you see that कि अच्छा ऐसा impact हम calculate कर सकते हैं, ये impact हो सकता है? How do you think on that part?
So honestly, Dhruv, मैंने यहाँ पे काफी एक mixed experience भी देखा है. So there are many bigger NGOs, but I've also seen those very smaller NGOs जिन्हें पता है कि वो क्या कर रहे हैं. They are working for a cause, but they don't know how to present that. उन्हें ये नहीं समझ में आता कि impact metrics हम कैसे define करें. So for example, we work with a shelter home in Pune location, and it's a very modest shelter home, and they were relying on individual donations. So we went there and we saw कि उनकी condition अच्छी नहीं है, but then we helped them draft a proposal कि आप ऐसा proposal बना के हमें भेजो. So यहाँ पे impact तो एक बहुत दूर की बात हो गई, but you directly see, right, what is the impact. Survival of this entire shelter home is the direct impact. अब यहाँ पे हमें और अगर deep dive करना है, then what we are trying to do is कि हम बच्चों के अभी हेल्थ इंडिकेटर्स हम लोग नोट डाउन कर रहे हैं, हम बच्चों के एजुकेशनल अभी क्या उनका स्टेटस है वो नोट डाउन कर रहे हैं कि कौन सा बच्चा कौन से सब्जेक्ट में कितने मार्क्स लेकर आ रहा है, बिकॉज दे डू नॉट हैव द राइट स्किल सेट बट दे हैव द हार्ट. So, this is the kind of problem that I have also seen with those smaller NGOs. But when we talk about a very potential project of a, big budget size, then wahan pe, again, the impact, the milestones and the monitoring, it again becomes very important. So I also see that impact is something which evolves with your project. So अगर एक ऐसा project है which has been there from many years and now we are a new donor, then the NGO has the right experience. They tell us कि आपको ये impact इसमें दिखने वाला है. But if it's a project that the non-profit and the corporate have together identified, then it also becomes our shared responsibility to identify the impact. So again, impact is something which also evolves. Impact is something that you can also predict in advance. And impact is also something that maybe you have to define yourself working out with the partner.
So that's a very, very, insightful thing. And I guess that's a very right way of saying that कि कई NGOs होते हैं जो अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं, but they don't know how to project that thing. So maybe going forward in future, we can also help such NGOs. उनको भी समझाया जाए, उनके लिए भी एक ट्रेनिंग करी जाए, जैसे टीचर्स की ट्रेनिंग स्टार्ट हुई है, ऐसे NGOs की ट्रेनिंग स्टार्ट होनी चाहिए, जहाँ पर उन्हें पता चल सके कि वो इम्पैक्ट कैसे शोकेस करें. Which is a, if I talk about NEP 2020, is a landmark reform emphasizing accessibility, employability, digital learning. They try to introduce everything there. Yes. But again, aligning CSR initiative with all those objectives without, without any challenges, that's again a very tough thing. So from your experience, what are the biggest hurdles in achieving this alignment?
So, Dhruv, this also brings me to give you an example of a recent project that we are supporting in collaboration with NCERT. We have been supporting Robotics India from the last 5 years in imparting STEM education in underprivileged schools. We are identifying such schools, and nearly 1,200 students who we provide STEM education yearly. But as a very crucial thing, what we also thought is that there is a dire need of also training the teachers. And for this capacity building, we are now creating an experiential lab at NCRT in association with Robotics India. So यहाँ पे what we see is that there is a synergy, there is a collaboration, and we can see collective action. So when we talk about NEP 2020 or any kind of such intervention which has been introduced by the government, maybe not very quickly, but slow and steady, we have to align our little steps to the national education policy. These initiatives, we have to see that how in our existing programs as well, we are trying to inculcate some or the other, effects of the NEP.
Thank you very much, Akshita, for sharing that insights. Recently, I was also reading one of the iShare report. What we have seen is out of the 4.3, million students who are currently studying in higher education, technology or engineering, there's only 11.8% contribution out of that. And which is what lowest among all the other categories which is there. So with such initiatives where you're introducing robotics at such an early stage, so that will boost, such percentage. And talking about those industries जहाँ पे बहुत ही high paying job रहती है, and these students are coming from such a humble background, that will help them in earning the livelihood as well. So that's wonderful thing. And also talking about the Z Scholars program that you have initiated, currently you're supporting Z Scholars program in 4 cities mainly, Delhi, Pune, Chennai, and Bengaluru, though they are the biggest education hubs of India. And still there are many students who keep on asking the question to us that there are other regions that from where they belong and they also want to part in the Z Scholars program because of the lot of value that under this program that you're giving to these students, not only scholarship, but the employers of the ZS, they're also giving mentorship to all these students. So are there any plans to expand the scholarship to more regions in the future?
So currently, Dhruv, what I can say is that we are evolving this program again. And currently, if I want to answer whether we want to expand the scholarship, my heart says yes, but my mind says that maybe a little while till we confirm this, because it also depends on the resources that we have. And there are many educational initiatives that we are contributing to. And this is, there's a set percentage of how much we can spend in the Z Scholars. So looking at that, we always have a cap of how much we can contribute. And I understand that there is a disparity when we compare it to the metro cities versus the tier 2 and tier 3. But when we also look at the metro cities, they have the biggest educational institutions. But there are many students who are coming from these tier 2 and tier 3 cities in these bigger educational hubs. So I don't think that, there is definitely a disparity that we cannot reach the colleges in tier 2, tier 3. But I think we are somewhere reaching out to the right set of students, because the eligibility of this scholarship is merit and need. And we are trying to address whatever best we can. And to all the students who are listening to this from the tier 2 and tier 3, keep working hard, and don't get disappointed if you don't see a scholarship at your location. I'm sure you're going to find the right set of support for yourselves.
A very, very valid point that these students who are coming from even tier 2, tier 3 cities, even I have seen that many students have moved to Delhi, Pune, Chennai, such locations for
Yes.
their education. And they're still from a humble background. And if they are getting support there, so maybe, they can get the support from such institute. But the best part is they'll get an inspiration that, yes, if they want to study from tier 2 to such locations, they can travel, and there are people like you who would love to support them. So thank you very much for sharing that thing. As a leader in your field, I'm sure that your journey has been filled with defining moments. There are a lot of moments that has come. You have shared some certain on them as well. Can you share some of those experiences with us? What are the key lessons that you have learned along the way? How can a young female aspirants draw inspiration from the leadership journey to break barriers? Like you have started from a volunteering, now you're at a leadership position. So what do you want to add something to it? Do you want to share those experiences with us in that?
Okay, interesting. So I think how one defines leadership is very different. So now I'm at a corporate, I know all the fancy jargons that one can use for leadership, and all those theories that we learn in our B schools. But when I was a child, the only thing I knew was taking initiatives and just leading. To me, leadership, the first four letters is very important. So lead is an absolute necessity. And I remember this, and I'll give you an example from a very favorite childhood memory of mine when I was part of the Ganesh Mandal. So हमारे जो एरिया था, मेरा जो नेबरहुड था, we used to organize Ganeshotsav in our area. And when I was in my fourth standard, उस time पे I was a participant in those competitions. So जो हमारे एरिया के बड़े दीदी भैया लोग रहते थे, they were like कि अक्षता एक काम करो, तुम अब बड़ी हो गई हो, तुम इसमें क्वालिफाई नहीं करती हो, तो तुम ऑर्गेनाइज कर लो. तो मुझे बहुत एम्पावर्ड फील हुआ. आई वॉज लाइक वाओ, मुझे इसको ऑर्गेनाइज करने का मौका मिला है. नाउ आई फेल्ट सो एम्पावर्ड एज आई ग्रू मच ओल्डर देन दैट. तो फिर हम लोग वो पूरा जो एरिया का गणेश उत्सव मंडल था, मैं उसी को ऑर्गेनाइज करने लग गई. आई वॉज वन ऑफ द की लीडर्स वहाँ पे. सो फॉर मी, जब एक वो पूरे एरिया के बच्चे एक साथ आ गए, व्हेन देयर वाज अ क्राउड ऑफ 200 to 300 स्टूडेंट्स एंड दे वर ओनली वेटिंग कि दीदी अब क्या करना है, टू मी दैट वाज लीडरशिप. एंड ट्रस्ट मी दैट experience contributes to almost 80% of what I am today. So taking the initiative at the very right age, grabbing opportunities on the right time, and leading with example is what will help anybody take on leadership roles. मेरे MBA के टाइम पे आई ऑलवेज यूज टू सी कि कोई अगर गेस्ट लेक्चर देने आ रहा है ना, तो वो अपना खुद ही जाके, हम लोग जो उनको वेलकम गिफ्ट देते थे वो लोग उठा के लेके जाते थे. बट देन देयर वाज अ मोमेंट आई थॉट कि नहीं, हमारे कॉलेज में आए, सो आई शुड लिव दैट. बट वो चीज मेरी एक फैकल्टी ने नोट कर ली, और उन्होंने मुझे वहां पे और एक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी दे दी दैट अभी तुम अपने क्लास को तुम संभालोगे, यू विल विद द क्लास CR. सो इवन व्हेन यू नो दैट नोबडी इज ऑब्जर्विंग यू, आपको कोई देख नहीं रहा है, बट स्टिल डूइंग द राइट थिंग is what will develop your core values. And this also brings me to the values of ZS, because these right things were something which I have been following since my childhood. And I'm so glad that even when I am at a corporate level, at ZS, our core values are doing the right thing, getting it right, and do the right thing. So, and treat people right. So these are the three things that we follow at ZS. And even for anybody, these are the three things that even you can follow in your life. And, just be your own leader. And yeah, best wishes to anyone.
So no brainers, I would say that those people who are good at heart, who just want to showcase such things, only those
Yes.
people get into CSR, and they can only, live the true meaning of impact. So
Absolutely.
thank you very much for sharing that thing. This has been an incredibly insightful discussion that we have and conversations that we have. And your work at ZS Associates and the kind of impact that your programs are you know it's sort the kind of producing is truly inspiring. And before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or message for those listeners There include students, CSR professionals, even change makers in the education space as well. So any final thought, any final message for all of them?
Yeah, of course, Rufan. Thank you so much for inviting me to this session, first of all. And just a final thoughts and wrapping up with this is that it's time for collective action. I would repeatedly stress on this point that this is the right time for collective actions, and I would specifically urge our government and many all the policy makers that take the advantage of the experience and the expertise that you have all around you. Our non-profits are doing an amazing work on the ground. The corporates have the right intent, the right resources and funds to collaborate, and we should reduce the duplication of efforts that government is doing, that the corporates are doing, that non-profits are doing. We have to come together and see that how we can contribute to the system. When we reach the 100th year of our independence, I'm sure that India should not be mentioned as a developing country, but it should be called as a developed country. So this is something that we can do for our own Bharat. Climate action is something that needs an urgent call from each one of us. So please start adhering to basic, environmental practices. Reducing single-use plastic, carrying your own steel water bottle is something that I would again request anybody watching this to focus on.
Thank you very much, Akshita. Salma, over to you.
It was indeed a very insightful discussion. Thank you, Dr. Akshita Vyas, for being a part of this insightful session and sharing your valuable perspectives. Your experience and expertise have truly enriched our discussion today. I'm sure our viewers will be having, they will have meaningful takeaways to reflect on, helping us all contribute towards greater empowerment through the CSR sector. A big thank you to everyone who has joined us. Let's continue working towards impactful and inclusive change. See you next time.